Flexible workforces are the future in staffing specifically, right? There's other industries, but when you talk about staffing, the generations of today and tomorrow are going to demand flexibility, and you need to have a plan for that. That's the main thing.
Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, founder of RecTools.io. RecTools, for those of you who don't know, is the only whole-of-market directory of all recruitment suppliers in the recruitment industry. So whether you're a talent acquisition team, whether you're a recruitment business owner, whether you are a solopreneur, whether you run a 50 headcount business or more, get yourselves to RecTools.io. If you're looking for a new CRM provider, a new invoice financing business, maybe looking for new payroll solutions, or maybe, just maybe, you're looking for some new technology that's out there that you haven't quite thought of yet, but you're looking for inspiration. RecTools.io, free to use today, now, and will be forever. You're joining us on a very rare opportunity. I always do my podcast face-to-face, so this is different for me. I'm out of my comfort zone, as my two guests are as well. I want to give a shout out to That Recruitment Company and Chris Stringer, who kindly allowed me to use their lovely boardroom for today, because we are going to the Recruitment Curry Club at the end of this event in Birmingham. My guests today are Bryan Wilson and Chris Richard of StaffUpApp. And first of all, gentlemen, thank you for giving me your time. I know that time zones are a little all over the place. So, Chris, I believe it's incredibly early for you, right?
Not incredibly. I'm in Los Angeles, so.
Okay. What time of day is it there for you now?
It's about 9:15.
Okay, yeah, that's not. I don't feel bad now. That's fine. Cool. Bryan, thank you for joining us as well.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's 10 where I am, so Boise, Idaho, represent.
Yeah, there you go, mate. Really appreciate you gentlemen joining me today. I wanted to take this opportunity to effectively educate my kind of UK audience on what you guys do, what you guys build, why you build it, and why these incredible and kind of entrepreneurial business owners in the UK need to be considering you guys for their recruitment business. So look, over to you guys. Give us the sales pitch. I'm a recruitment business owner. I found your website. I found your content on LinkedIn, especially yours, Bryan. And I'm like, okay, tell me more about you guys.
Sure. You want me to go for it, Chris?
But you started off.
All right. Awesome. Well, I would say that we're in the business of really helping primarily staffing organizations, right? I think there is kind of a bit of a distinction between recruiting and staffing, but staffing organizations compete in the world we live in, and especially the world that we're moving towards. So there are some big pressures that are coming in on staffing organizations, primarily like gig platforms, right? And these global EORs that are coming in and really trying to eat staffing's lunch. And I think that staffing has been kind of viewing these gig platforms as something different. And we argue that gig is staffing. It's just the evolution of that, right? And so we're talking about like platforms, like mobile apps for candidates, clients being able to come in and self-serve in certain ways, but still having that staffing agency at the center. It's very, very expensive to build a platform staffing model, a gig staffing model on your own. It costs millions of dollars and lots of years. So we're trying to bring that to small and medium-sized agencies so they have the tools to compete with these larger gig agencies and the largest staffing agencies in the world.
If I can interject just for a second then. So you say staffing and recruitment's different, and I think this is terminology that's incredibly important to understand, especially from the where we are right now. A lot of UK recruiters are looking at moving into the US market and servicing that US market, right? And so language is so key. So in your guys' world, what's the difference between a recruitment business and a staffing agency?
Well, I would say, recruiters work at staffing agencies, and there's plenty of recruiting agencies that have a staffing arm. I'd say that the biggest difference is when I say recruiting, I'm talking about specifically like contingency-based or retained-based agencies, full desk recruiters, 360, whatever you call it, people that are typically brokering, right? I'm going to place one candidate with one client, and I'm kind of that broker in between. Staffing agency kind of does that as well, but the difference being they're typically the employer of record, right? So they're dealing with all sorts of additional nuances like onboarding, compliance, payroll, those kind of things, right? And it's typically at a little bit more higher volume, maybe blue collar type, what we'd call blue collar type work, or deskless type type employees.
I see. Okay, fine. So again, in UK terminology, then we're effectively distinguishing sort of permanent recruitment and temp recruitment is what we call it, right? So
Yeah,
there will
yeah,
be
they call it labor hire in Australia, maybe in the UK too.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Right. So you're talking about you guys build platforms that allow temp agencies to really ramp up their activity. So tell us a little bit about kind of the functionality and stuff that you guys build into that.
Yeah, around flexible workforces.
Mm.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's more designed to be a one-stop shop for a candidate. So the idea is they can download the agency's app. It's fully branded to them. It looks as if they had built it from scratch. In reality, we've been developing our platform for 7 years, and they don't have to go through that process. And so we make it branded and configured to them. The candidates get in there and everything they need to do from like applying to completing their onboarding documents, submitting timesheets, I mean, you name it, everything is done in one place. And that's the experience that most people are getting like outside of work with, you name it, the social media apps, food delivery, rideshare, you name it. Meeting candidates where they're expecting to be met today.
I love that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. To kind of build a product on the basis of this is what works in other sectors and industries and why does it work, and therefore that's what we need to replicate. I like that. And so the obvious benefit from where I'm sitting is the candidate stickiness and loyalty, right, to that particular agency or that particular staffing firm. What other kind of benefits have you guys noticed off the back of this for when you do speak to recruitment businesses and staffing agencies and say, look, this is what we can do for you? What are the things that they're picking up on?
Well, it's a kind of a transformational thing, right? So in different industries, I think it means different things, and some industries are ahead of others. So it's interesting because if you look at like healthcare in particular, those agencies feel that pressure way more than other agencies right now because flexible work has already come to that industry. The gig platforms are really, that's where they've focused, right? So their clients are demanding this type of technology. They're saying, hey, if I can't log in and submit a shift and understand what's going on, who's showing up for work that day, approved timesheets, all that kind of stuff, like while the recruiting agency sleeps, like I don't want it. So if you don't have that technology, like you're not keeping up with the other vendors that I'm talking to. That's healthcare. Dental, that happened a couple of years ago, right? They're even further ahead, at least in the States. But now, but every industry is being affected because the workers that are coming into the workforce now and the generations coming after them, they all grow up in this digital world, right? And they've all gigged for Uber or Jobber. They've tried this before. They know what it means to take a job and get paid the same day. And then when they go to a staffing agency, like, oh, I got to fill out this 30-page questionnaire before I even get to talk to anybody for a 40-hour, that model's broken. And so when people get into this method, like everything changes because everything's changed.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. The efficiency piece is clear, isn't it? So tell me about some of the sectors. I know you covered you sort of the medical, dental. Tell me about some of the other industries and sectors that you guys are supporting at the moment.
Light industrial, what else? IT. We actually started in IT, like our initial clients were IT staffing agencies. What
Hospitality
else?
is another big one.
Hospitality. Yep.
Yep. Anybody that has workforces that are, I would say, deskless is a pretty good fit for this, right? So yeah, typically people that aren't sitting at a desk all day, but going to different job sites or whatever.
Okay. And right, so what I'm finding kind of intriguing about this is that if I'm a UK business, there is a big push at the minute over here for us to kind of use the US as a way to kind of expand our own revenue, right? The general consensus is that the US market is less competitive than ours here in the UK because ours is so saturated with so many more firms competing over the same amount of business. Whereas out in the States, there is a lot of business available, and therefore there's a lot of money to be had. And UK recruiters, just by the nature of how they operate, are a kind of fastest finger first, and sort of how they operate is well suited to make a lot of money very quickly in the US. But it sounds like what you're saying is though that things like kind of our processes, because there aren't many businesses in the UK that will insist that candidates download their app, their agency app, and submit everything through that, and onboard through it and apply for vacancies through it, because there's so many. Right? Look, 35,000 recruitment agencies in the UK alone. You're not going to down, and if let's assume that only 10% of those, or even 1% of those, are in my sector, I'm not going to download 35 apps for 35 different recruitment businesses to be able to, apply for these jobs and so on. But it sounds like this is something that we need to be taking really seriously if we are looking to move into the temp market in the US, because, well, this is the standard that's been set, right? So go on, sorry.
No, I would say that there is big opportunity to your point, because this is still like pretty ground floor, I guess. There's the biggest agencies out there in America, the Ronstadts of the world. They've been investing in mobile tech for 4 or 5 years, right? And then you have these gig platforms that are coming in and saying, I'm a technology company, I'm going to disrupt staffing, right? So those are the ones that have already figured this out. It's general market staffing agencies that are still kind of catching up. Our biggest hurdle is just education in the market and showing people that this is possible. Because I think a lot of staffing leaders think about this, but they're like, I'm not a technology person. I can't go out and build a mobile app I don't want to manage developers, and you need that technology. So they think there's this, and they're right, it is a big barrier to entry, but that's why we exist as a private labeled platform provider, if that makes sense. So to your point, I think this is a great time to get in and say, come in and if you're trying to break into the US market, say, we understand that flexible workforces are the way to go. And as long as you know how to have those conversations with the prospects, I mean, light industrial is a gigantic opportunity. It's 38%, 36% of the entire staffing market in America. It's a massive opportunity. Wow. And nobody's having these conversations with manufacturers. No one's saying the reason you have 400% turnover is because you're so rigid. Like, if you like these point systems, you're not showing up work, we're firing you. Introduce these flexible workforce models and see how the workers of today respond, right?
So give me an example of that model then in real terms. So I run a light industrial business. I have an FTE or a headcount of needing 40 people on site at any given time, right? Mm-hmm. So run me through what that model looks like in terms of how your app and your product suite solves my headache of I've got these 40 people and I'm always getting 10 new ones every week because I have to get rid of these.
Right. Yeah. So like traditionally right now, it's like, okay, if we need 40 people, right, we're going to contract with the staffing agency and we're going to tell you there's 40 roles. That staffing agency is going to fill it. And they're like, great, we did our job. But next week, those people aren't showing up because they didn't like it or life happened. There's no flexibility around it, right? They don't want to work 8-10 hours a day. Some of these companies have mandatory overtime, right? And these are like $15 to $17 an hour jobs. So what this model looks like, the way you can change that is say, listen, let's introduce a flexible workforce model. So instead of hiring 40 people, let's hire, let's train and qualify 70 people, right? And let's say, here's the shifts we have available. Let's break them off into 4 or 5 hour chunks. Let's build flexibility into it. Let's allow and encourage people that if they've got life to come up, they can drop a shift from their phone. And when they do, it automatically alerts everybody else that's qualified for this role to say, hey, could you come in today? And it backfills why the staffing agency sleeps, right? That's the difference, is like actually treating workers the way they should be treated, right? The same way white collar workers are treated.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that is that, yeah. Is that utopian or is that actually happening at the minute?
There's some great companies out there. There's a company called My Work Choice that we just absolutely love that is doing this very, very successfully. We have clients as well that are doing this. Job Squad is one of those. They're in the light industrial space and they're having these conversations, but it takes I don't know if sophisticated is the right word, but the right salesperson to go in and be able to talk to these facilities and say, this is why this is happening, right? Because you have a workforce that wants flexibility, that demands it. They're not showing up because you're not giving it to them. So how do we give that to them while also keeping the production line full and putting out the number of units we need to produce every single day to do that, right? So I don't think it's utopian by any means. It's just getting the employers to learn to come up.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I can think of examples of clients that I worked with in our kind of industrial and engineering division who would have absolutely suited this model, because you go, look, yes, you have 40 people in the warehouse at any given time on shifts or whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this app with, and so my time and resource is going to be spent registering candidates and grabbing their availability, making their compliance ready. So making sure they're good to go, ready to work, and they're engaged enough to go, right, there's 120 people in this pool now, and we're going to ping out to them and say, right, actually, we've got a shift from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. It's only 4 hours, but does anybody want it? Oh, yeah, I could do 4 hours today. Yeah, I've got nothing on. Or actually, I've committed to this full time, but I need the flexibility this next week. Next week, I've got to take the kids to school and I've got to pick them up. So I can only do 10 till 2. Okay. And those additional residual hours get pinged onto the app and anybody can go, oh, go on, then I'll have those. Because I can say from experience in the UK, we have a blue collar workforce in things like the Romanian community and the Polish community, who will take as much overtime as they possibly can and who will turn up to every bit of like kind of shift work that is available, because their main and only driver is to earn as much money as possible, which then suits the other people who are kind of like, actually, do you know what? I could do with a bit more flexibility. It'd be nice to be able to take my kids to school. Or, do you know, I've done this for that long. It'd be nice to take my grandkids to school, you know? Just having that as an option, yeah. And I think the opportunity that I can see from what we're talking about here is, as a recruitment business, having the ability to sit down with a talent acquisition leader and a HR leader and a finance CFO, finance director of a business, and say, look, we have a product that is ours that we are able to implement into your business that will make not only your hiring model more efficient, but actually save you cost. Because if you think about the ongoing cost of temp margin on temp margin, and then replace that person, get a new one in, train them up, actually, this is a far better way of thinking about it and doing it. So that's interesting, very, very interesting. What is the uptake then in terms of how tell me some case studies or success stories from clients that you guys have worked with recently where you can say it's working, this is actually happening.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the clients we work with, like I mentioned Job Squad earlier, they do a lot of light industrial work in like the Midwest, like in RV manufacturing and things like that, right? These are companies that have 200, 300% turnover sometimes, right? So being able to come in and introduce these flexible models, I'm not going to say that the turnover is like vanished completely, right? I mean, you can't control humans, but they're getting that down to, 50, 60% and getting better as we tweak this, right? This is still new. So like we work with our clients to keep making this technology better, but they're getting those types of numbers, which is miles ahead of where they were before, right? And it's also being able to come in and it's offering not just people solutions anymore. So it's separating yourself from other staffing agencies that I'm just better because we're better at building networks of candidates. It's like, this is how we're doing it, right? We've built a technology. It's our technology. That's the cool thing about private labeling this stuff. It's our technology. So no another staffing firm can't come in and just take over where we left off. And we can now, it enables that partnership more with their end clients to say, we're also building this together with you, Mr. Client, as well.
I love that. And so how long does it take for me to engage with you? If I engage with you today, what's the time frame that I'm looking at before I can start actively marketing this to my client base?
Chris, you got an idea about that?
Yeah, we usually say about 45 to 60 days. The caveat being what's included. Like not all clients will use our onboarding per se. But if they do, there's a lot of upfront work that goes into that because we basically convert all their smart forms to smart forms. So they're easier to complete from within the app. And so depending on how many they have, that could extend that time range.
You can pick and choose features then as well along the way.
Exactly.
So
Because not everything applies to all types of agencies.
Amazing. Love that. Okay. No, that makes sense.
We got a lot of people that just use our app just as like what I call a top of funnel resource. So it's like, hey, we're using a Bullhorn or a Job Adder or Vincere, something like that. We just want an app to where we can advertise our jobs, get applications in, promote a referral program. So like some of them are going basic like that, and others are going full kind of Indeed Flex where they're embedding this technology inside of companies.
Well, it makes sense though, doesn't it? Because the alternative is that, I mean, again, I know a driving agency that has a WhatsApp group. That's how they're managing their drivers, right? And yeah, that's fine. It's quick and efficient, but it's just as quick and efficient as an app that has push notifications that has their compliance up to date, has their registration done. You have access to what hours they can and can't do and don't want to do, what they're able to drive and not able to drive, and you can just go, right, send that out. I've got an urgent requisition again, because I know driving agencies who, I'll speak to on a Monday and I'll be like, yeah, busy. And then Friday, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening, they're still in the office trying to find one last driver because somebody's called in sick, and it just seems like a very old-fashioned way of doing it. When absolutely, as you rightfully say, everybody uses apps from their personal banking all the way through to Uber just to get from A to B. Everybody has the ability to use an app now, so this is ripe for disruption. I like it. I love it.
Right. Especially the younger generation. They don't get on computers all that often, except maybe to play games. But, everything they're doing is from their mobile phone. So why not let them apply or pick up shifts while they're, Netflixing or playing Call of Duty, right?
No, it makes sense. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so from the UK business market, how do people reach out to you? And from then a global, because I'm assuming that this is a global proposition. You can work with pretty much any staffing or temp business or contract firm, whatever you want to call it and categorize yourself in. But I'm assuming you can provide this service to anybody in the world.
We've done our best to make sure that it's international ready, right? And so while most of our clients are in North America, US and Canada, we do have a couple in the UK and a couple in Australia, and we want to continue growing that and working with partners that kind of see the same vision and optimize.
Lovely. And so how do people reach out to you guys? What's the sales process? Here's your chance to plug. Go on, Chris.
They can visit our website. We have like a book a demo form they can just fill out really quickly, get in touch with us, learn a little bit about their agency, and hopefully set up a custom demo for them based on that.
StaffUpApp.com.
There it is. Yeah. Brilliant. Any closing thoughts? Any pearls of wisdom that you've picked up along the way that you think people need to hear?
Like I said, I think that the biggest thing that we try to get across to people is that, staffing has evolved and it's continuing to evolve, and flexible workforces are the future in staffing specifically, right? There's other industries, but when talking about staffing, the generations of today and tomorrow are going to demand flexibility, and you need to have a plan for that. That's the main thing.
I love that.
And you don't want to 30 recruiters picking up phone calls and doing text back and forth, right? You need to automate that somehow. Is probably to drive that point home.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. No, I echo entirely what you're saying. It's ready for change, and it's not like you're asking people to, your end prospect, which is your client and your candidates. You're not asking them to do something revolutionary different. What you're asking them to do is actually something that's more in tune with what they're used to, and absolutely, like you said, we know that the next generation of workforce are branded as lazy, not motivated, and so on and so forth. But the reality of it is what they ask for is two things. Social purpose, they want to feel good about what they do or have some sort of social purpose attached to it, and flexibility, because life gets in the way. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we grew up in an era where our mums and dads, one could go to work and one could stay at home, and you could buy you could work a minimum wage job and get a relatively decent house and have a good retirement. These guys haven't got that luxury. And so what they want in exchange for that is the flexibility from work. And unfortunately, they don't always get that in the markets that you guys are operating in. Be it blue collar, be it high volume or people heavy businesses, that level of flexibility doesn't exist. And you're right, people sat behind a desk get all the flexibility in the world, right? I'm fortunate enough that I get to take my kids to school every day. I get to have breakfast with my mom every day, and I get to knock off work whenever the hell I want. But if I was in a...
Not that you ever do that, but yeah.
Of course I do. Of course I do, yeah. But Joe, I have that flexibility. So it's easy for me to sit there and say, oh, this is great. But actually there's people, I've got family members, nephews, nieces, uncles that work in factories, that work for the NHS, that work in these types of environments where it's shift pattern work. It's, your lunches are subscribed to you. This is when you take your lunch. These are your 2 15-minute breaks. Now go out and do it. And yeah, absolutely. If this type of product can disrupt that and put a lot more people back into the workforce and provide for that flexibility, like why would you not get on board with it?
Couldn't say better.
Chris, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just in regards to getting on board with it, any website you go to today is, for the most part, mobile optimized, right? So on some level, they're acknowledging that it's important to reach candidates where they're at because most candidates are probably on their phone visiting their website. But most agencies stop there. They think, hey, we have a mobile optimized website, we're good. And
Yeah.
the data says that 88% of the time that people spend when they're actually on their phones is in mobile apps. It's like, so where does it really make sense to focus your engagement on, right? So flipping that switch is really what makes a difference as far as how you reach and engage with your candidates.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I love that. Brilliant. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. This has been really, really insightful, really good. And, the next one what I'll do is I'll wait for kind of the questions and the feedback to come through. And then our next follow-up podcast we'll do kind of pulling those things apart and kind of, going into some maybe specifics and so on and so forth. But this has been really good. I really want to thank you for your time.
Thanks for having us on,
Thanks
Nitin.
for having us.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
No worries. Guys, that's enough from us for another episode of RecTalk. New episodes drop every Wednesday and Friday. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, doing all the cool shit that you guys do to keep us number one. We are the largest podcast channel in the recruitment space. We're a top 15% Spotify podcast as well, and that's all down to you guys and your commitment. So thank you very much. We'll see you again at the next one.
Thank you.
All right.